Welcome, George W. Bush, to Double Standards. Thinking back, what was your biggest achievement as president?
September the 11th, 2001.
Would you describe that as an achievement?
When America suffered the most devastating surprise attack since Pearl Harbor.
Surprise attack. Some say you ignored vital intelligence before that dreadful day. How do you characterize now your decision to ignore what could have prevented 9/11?
And led to the hardest decision any president can make.
A hard decision to ignore the intelligence warning you of an attack. Many know you're an alcoholic, but few may realize you actually started drinking quite late.
Drinking at age 40. A decision I could not have made without faith.
Faith in what would make you start drinking?
Meeting my wife Laura and raising our twin daughters.
You started drinking because of your family. Anyway, your family was very close to the Bin Laden family. What did you discuss with Osama?
I discussed the difficult decisions I made to keep our homeland safe, our successes and setbacks on the battlefield, and the process I followed to change our strategy in Iraq by ordering the troops.
Do you think it was wise discussing all that with him? If you didn't consider him an enemy, who was the enemy in your war on terror?
The United States.
Well, you presided over a regime that some say killed 1 million Iraqis and tortured with impunity. What do you say to that?
It was the privilege of a lifetime.
Thank you for giving us your time, President Bush. Hope you enjoyed that interview with President Bush. Let's take you back to that terrible day when George W. Bush was informed of the first plane that hit the World Trade Center. He decided to continue his planned photo opportunity at a school in Florida. His chief of staff let him know that the second plane had hit and that the nation was under attack. Well, that was what film director Michael Moore said. Famously, he then read a story, My Pet Goat, to the assembled children. He then sits and sits and sits for 7 minutes. Even his officials do nothing. Well, in the book just published by his vice president, Dick Cheney, he says he took charge of the government response to 9/11, and one of the first things on the agenda was torture.
I am happy to be here at the American Enterprise Institute. Make no mistake, our policy of torture, intense interrogation, kept us safe.
Dick Cheney, previously chairman of the oil services company Halliburton there. Meanwhile, on September the 12th, 2001, Richard Clarke, chief counterterrorism advisor on the U.S. National Security Council, who had warned the president that an al-Qaeda attack was imminent, seemed puzzled by the morning meeting.
You come in September 12th, ready to plot what response we take to al-Qaeda. Let me talk about the response that you got from top administration officials. On that day, what did the president say to you?
The president, in a very intimidating way, left us, me and my staff, with the clear indication that he wanted us to come back with the word that there was an Iraqi hand behind 9/11, because they had been planning to do something about Iraq from before the time they came into office.
Did he ask about any other nations other than Iraq?
No, not at all. It was Iraq, Saddam, find out, get back to me.
And were his questions more about Iraq than about al-Qaeda?
Absolutely. Absolutely. He didn't ask me about al-Qaeda.
And the reaction you got that day from the defense secretary, Donald Rumsfeld, from his assistant, Paul Wolfowitz?
Well, Donald Rumsfeld said, when we talked about bombing the al-Qaeda infrastructure in Afghanistan, he said there were no good targets in Afghanistan. Let's bomb Iraq. And we said, but Iraq had nothing to do with this. And that didn't seem to make much difference. And the reason they had to do Afghanistan first was it was obvious that al-Qaeda had attacked us, and it was obvious that al-Qaeda was in Afghanistan.
Perhaps it was obvious why oil-rich Iraq was of some interest to the United States, though this little article in the New York Times from last year may have helped persuade some that the Obama strategy of surging in Afghanistan wasn't such a bad idea after all. Minerals in Afghanistan. Well, the war is arguably now the longest U.S. war in history, with his usual prescient Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld told CNN that the war was over in 2002, but then his disrespect for the U.S. press and the U.S. Constitution was legendary.
Initially came out, you had said that you hadn't made changes to the the message that many of us took from that is that commission to make major changes to that.
Rumsfeld doing his usual at a press conference there. Not that the corporate media were too good at challenging power in the years since 9/11, and the alternative media on the internet spent a good decade trying to find conspiracy theories without acknowledging this film called The Super Mario Brothers, made 8 years before 9/11. Watch the towers fall. So they actually made a film about the Twin Towers collapsing 8 years before 9/11. Maybe there was a conspiracy. It's just been revealed that Tony Blair is godfather to one of Rupert Murdoch's children. The man whose empire is currently mired in criminal allegations is very close to Blair. Here is his wife on her new book about their friendship.
Their friendship, helping them coping life challenges, suffering, sacrifices, sharing secrets, and how they interact with each other is quite a universal theme with friendship.
Well, I'll read it. The Murdochs are never far from the headlines, especially on this anniversary of 9/11. The U.S. Attorney General has confirmed to the relatives of those killed in 9/11 that an investigation is underway into News Corporation over the hacking of mobile phones by Murdoch employees.
Perhaps some cell phones of British citizens who were victims of the 9/11 terrorist attacks here in the United States may have been targets of this hacking scandal. So it is erupting. We've seen the share price fall not only since last week, but on Friday it was down as well. We expect it to continue to fall a bit as Mr. Murdoch is over there trying to do some damage control.
Share prices, damage control. Notice no morality there, just what the effect of hacking dead people's phones is on the share price. Well, that's how Murdoch's News Corporation may have handled 9/11. Up next, someone who was there on the day, Lieutenant General Harry Radoigi, the chief of security at the Pentagon, on that day, 10 years ago, when 2 U.S. cities came under attack. He couldn't make it to the studio, but agreed to give us this exclusive interview between meetings on a noisy street in central London. He says the U.S. should fear another attack, a cyber attack.
I was responsible for the communications in the Pentagon, and the United States has various communications networks that are of critical nature located in the Pentagon. And of course, with the Pentagon burning for 3.5 days and all of the water that was being poured on that with the fire trucks trying to put the flames out, the vulnerability of the equipment, the electrical equipment of communications networks was a very real problem for us, because as the water levels were rising in the basement of the Pentagon, that's where the equipment was located. So that was a very real issue that we had to face. I also was the manager of the National Communications System for the United States. So establishing the restoration priorities for all the communications in New York City that were down. And that was 5.5 million voice and data circuits, including areas like the stock and bond market that serves the whole world.
Did you just go on autopilot? Or did you, how is it?
I didn't go home for many days and weeks and months, as a matter of fact, because there was an enormous amount of work to coordinate and to try and accomplish. And I had a wonderful staff, both on the military side and then also on the national communications system side, that were able to help me in trying to restore communications, not only to the Pentagon, but also to New York City.
Of course, one might say there was, perhaps the United States wasn't prepared for those kinds of attacks, but it did recover remarkably quickly. Do you think a cyber attack on the United States, in a sense, could be worse than a conventional attack when it comes to getting systems back online?
I think it could be, because the communications equipment that we have today is very vulnerable. One of the biggest threats, I think, that is posed to our communications today is the fear of electromagnetic pulse that comes from a nuclear detonation, which would actually destroy equipment and the connections for quite a prolonged period of time.